Thank you, Joe. If you have any additional questions, feel free to submit them through the chat, and we will do our best to address them. Let's check out the Q&A if there are any questions.
Yeah,
Okay,
there were a few questions. I think we just jump in and talk about some of the common questions that we see. The really neat thing about Quest on Demand for AD, the tool itself, is when we talk about endpoints and where we're moving them to. Can it be on-prem to on-prem, or Entra to Entra, or hybrid to hybrid, or even Entra to on-prem? The really cool thing about this tool is it can do all of them, right? So regardless of what the source configuration is for your Windows workstations, we can get them moved over, right? That's the really important part. Is that we deal with lots of different organizations, lots of different customers every day, and every migration, every modernization project's unique. Where we get people who, hey, we just acquired a company and all of their workstations are Entra only. We're on-prem only, and we want to migrate Entra to on-prem. We can do that. So again, when we talk about the paths, it's really anything, and that's one of the really cool things about the tool is that it is very, very flexible. Um, uh, Becky, do you wanna jump in here and add anything to kind of that?
Well, as you mentioned, the anywhere to anywhere, I did see there were a fair amount of questions that we had received already about migrating to Entra and even to hybrid, right? And so I know that one of the trickier parts there is that it's not just about the device moving, right? So can you move a device from one place to another? You can. But for the best experience, you also need to think a little bit broader. Is your device being managed by group policy? Is your device being managed by Intune policies? How is it being managed currently in the source? And then how are you expecting that to be managed in the target? Hybrid or Entra, you could have some Intune at play. And so one thing I wanted to mention is that, as you said, it's configurable. We have options in the tool that can help you do a lot of that cleanup. And I mentioned that in one of the comments, but I want to expand on that just a little bit. When you're managing a device with Intune, there are pieces in the tenant that are helping to manage that and where settings are configured. There's also a lot of just stuff on the local device that is tied to that source tenant. And so the tool does have built-in options to help and do that cleanup. But I have seen where, some people have additional things they need cleaned up that the device, that the tool doesn't do by default. And that's where what you mentioned, the configuration really comes in, is you can just add another line in there. You can add another script. If you need to enroll it in the target BitLocker, right? You can add that into the tool manually if we don't have that as an option. Now, that's one example of an option that I know is going in there later this year, but you can add that. So I think, based on what you said, that's a lot of the customization that I think makes it more powerful. I did just see one other question come in about the 1-minute countdown. So Joe, you demonstrated that you built a pop-up, right? That said, hey, end user, this is what's going to happen with your computer. This is how long it's going to take. The tool by default has a countdown pop-up that is 2 minutes, and you can configure it directly in the tool to say, I want it to be 1 minute, I want it to be 10 minutes. So you can configure that. But the tool has a newer, more robust countdown timer, and it's an actual interface that the end user sees where they can snooze it, they can cancel it if the admin allows them to do that. Kind of, I always think about the Windows updates, right? You get the update notification in the corner that says, oh, we've installed some updates, or they're ready. Are you good to restart now? Or no, I'm in the middle of a meeting. I'd like to snooze that for an hour, and then once my meeting's done, then I can reboot then. So as far as the configurable countdown, there are a few options, either using that new interface where the end user can snooze, postpone it, cancel it, or just the more basic pop-up where you can say, I'm just going to let it pop up and it's going to happen when it happens, but you can configure if that's 1 minute, 2 minutes, however long you want it to be.
All right. Perfect. So again, just like Becky said, we're working really hard to, make the end user experience a lot better. The new, pop-up that lets people, cancel and postpone the migrations, again, is completely configurable. Plus, the self-service, right, or the self-scheduling function that's coming out soon is going to be really great, because you're going to be able to have your end users go in and say, hey, on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, this is when I want to do my migration. So keep an eye out for that, because that's coming. That was very, very highly asked for, and lots and lots of people have been asking about that. So there are lots of questions in the chat. So a couple things I wanted to bring up is, there's a question is, can we postpone the reboot? Can we do different things with the devices pre, post, or during migration? And the answer is absolutely. You can do anything on these devices that you want pre, post, or during migration. So if you wanted to pop up more messages, if you wanted to, set the last login user, which is an important thing to do, all of those things can be done. You need to add packages, remove packages, change reg keys, all of those things. They're absolutely things that can be done. Right? Because again, the great part about the tool is that it is very extensible, and you have a lot of flexibility into those tools, and be able to do PowerShell scripts, kind of anytime you want, to make whatever changes you need to. So again, the whole idea here is that we wanted to provide a tool set that was very easy to use, but very extensible as well. So there's lots of different things that we can do about that. Another question that we get asked about is GPOs, right? What do we do with GPOs? How do we deal with GPOs? And the answer is not much, because the reality of it is that with GPOs, when you're moving devices on-prem into Entra, you're going to be moving to Intune policies, right? So the concept here is that GPOs and Intune policies are apples to oranges, right? They don't mesh up. It's not an easy process to say, hey, let's pick up these GPOs and move them into Intune policies. And the big reason, the biggest reason we say don't do this is because so many organizations today have GPOs that they don't know what they do, that they're nested, 5 GPOs deep, and they're not really 100% sure, what they're doing, what they're being used for. A lot of folks are like, yeah, I'm afraid to clean up my GPOs because I don't want to break anything. So the reality is that when you're looking at an AD modernization project, specifically moving devices into Entra, you're going to want to take this opportunity to really rethink how you're managing your devices, and what you're going to be doing moving forward. Because again, what you don't want to do is you don't want to take the old stuff and just move it blindly into your new environment without really taking a careful look at what you have. Just going through some of the questions, how do you create the PPKG file? So this is an important thing. Basically, what you're doing is you're going to go to the Windows Store. You're going to type in Windows Configuration Designer and download the Windows Configuration Designer from Microsoft. Okay. Couple things that are really important. Make sure to download it from the Microsoft Store. There are a couple older versions floating around that you can download that have that have been deprecated. So always make sure you go to Windows or the Microsoft Store to download the Windows Configuration Designer. Another pro tip is that there is an advanced mode in the Windows Configuration Designer, and it goes from having about I don't know, 15 questions to 5,000, right? So as soon as you turn on that advanced mode, just be prepared to answer a lot of questions and go through a lot of configurations. You don't need it. You don't have to do that advanced mode to create the PPKG package. You can if you want. I know there's a few folks that I work with regularly that that like doing that. Again, it just gives you options for extensibility. Okay.
And Joe, I see a question I want to talk to real quick. Asked about the office profile flip. And this is a really good question because I know there can be some confusion here about what the device migration updates and doesn't update versus any sort of content migration and what account the users are signed into their office applications with. So when this tool migrates the device from one place to another, part of what we're flipping there is with the reackle, the repermissioning, we're also reackling the entire device Windows profile, their login profile, so that when they now log in with their target account, like Joe showed, the desktop's the same, all of your shortcuts are there, all of your configurations are there. However, the account that you're logged into your Office applications with is the same because we don't know, just because you migrated the device to a different place, you might still be using an old source email account or an old source OneDrive account. But maybe you also did a content migration and a device migration at the same time, in which case your end users want to sign in with their target accounts to both the device and their Office applications. So if you have a scenario, this one said they're going from, commercial hybrid to a GCC cloud only tenant. So the device itself will go from that hybrid state to the new cloud, and they'll log into the device with their new cloud account. But their Office applications, if they were signed into that source commercial mailbox OneDrive Teams, that's where they would still be logged into. And so if you're doing a content migration as well, that's where the desktop update agent, which is part of your ODM T3, the mail migration solution that you purchased, that's what will actually update the Office application login. So we see that really commonly, that people are coordinating those two things, migrate the content and the devices, and then the user just has to log into their device with their new account. They don't have to do anything special there, but then they do need to run the desktop update agent to switch how they're logged into their Office applications.
Yep, 100%. And, there's a lot of questions about tenant stuff like mail and, Exchange and SharePoint permissions. Those things are all handled through the Quest on Demand tools, right? So whether, you're moving, devices or mailboxes from one tenant to another tenant, SharePoint sites, Power BI, right? We're able to migrate Power BI between tenants now. We're able to do things like migrate sensitivity labels, encrypted content, and things like that. So the reality of it is, and there was a comment about ADMS and the kind of old school Microsoft tools. The reality is that the Quest on Demand platform can do all those things, but more. And we are using much more modern technology to do these types of migrations. We don't have any ADMT code in our tools, right, from 2003. And so again, the idea here is that yes, the Quest on Demand platform, which is comprised of a bunch of different tools. We talked about the device migration piece of it, but it also does all the other things like tenant to tenant and the mail, reconfiguring the Outlook clients and OneDrive and the Teams client to point to the target tenant. It's all part of this migration platform. Okay. So interesting question. What's recommended content migration or device migration? So this is a really interesting question because it gets asked all the time. And the answer is, doesn't matter. It really depends on the business objectives and the business drivers more so than it does technical. From a purely technical perspective, the best answer is try to do everything at once, right? But then you have to, deal with the risk associated with not only moving workstations, but moving, SharePoint sites and team sites and things like that. It really doesn't make too much of a difference, but understand that each option has its pros and cons. If you're using single sign-on and you move a device into a target AD environment or a target Entra environment, that single sign-on potentially could break. Again, if you do the tenant stuff first, nothing wrong with that. Just know that, your users, the first times they're logging in, they're going to have to authenticate to it. So again, I know we're running out of time. I know we're getting close to time here, but what I wanted to bring up was that we're always available. We have lots of time to answer any further questions that you might have. So feel free to reach out. I don't know, Becky, if you want to answer that work group question that just popped in.
Okay. Right now, the tool does not support migrating workstations to or from a work group. It is something that we are looking at, though. So, keep an eye out. If you attend one of these later this year, maybe we'll have a different answer about saying that we have a plan for it. But right now, that's not something that we have committed.
Okay. And then two closing points. We do support migrations to GCC and GCC High. Okay, so if you're moving endpoints into a GCC or GCC High tenant, perfectly fine. Going the other way, though, not so supported, right? Because of the sensitivity with, potentially, top secret data potentially coming out into a commercial tenant, but moving into it is perfectly fine. And then there was another question about if we were going to have a session on ODM Express, and that's absolutely something we can do. And I'll work with Luciano, and we'll get something together and get that published.
One thing on the GCC and GCC High, just to clarify, we do allow migrating from GCC as a source down to commercial, just not from GCC High, since that is the government location.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we don't want the men in black showing up at our house knocking on our door. So, all right. If there's another question. Do we have a script to run silent just before the desktop update agents to?
So, I don't know if the person's asking if DUA can just run silently itself. If that is the question, we do get asked that a lot, and the answer is no, because the user has to interact and authenticate with each of the applications. That's not, we don't ask the user, hey, give us your password and we're going to log into Outlook for you and we're going to log into OneDrive for you. Instead, DUA says, I've made the changes. Now, end user, I need you to log into Outlook and I need you to log into OneDrive. So if the question is if DUA can run 100% silent, no. But if the question is you want to run a different script just before DUA that the user doesn't see anything with, absolutely. And I can put this in the chat, is you can customize DUA to run a custom script before and after, or either one or neither one. So I'll clarify that in the chat as well. And you asked about some custom scripts. I don't know if there are any examples that we've posted. Basically test the script on your own on the workstation, and if the script does what you expect it to, then you should just be able to load it into the DUA config within ODM, and it should function as desired.
Perfect. And Luciano, I guess a question for you is, are we going to be following up with an email for folks so that they can reply back to ask questions?
Yes, a following email will be sent next week. It will include the session, which is recorded. It will have a link to the ebook for you to download and the survey link to all people who registered. Yeah.
Perfect. And then again, I know there's a lot of questions about DUA and things like that. Once you get the mail, shoot us a request. We can jump on a call. We can walk through this all with you and go through all the details of the desktop update agent and how it works. So absolutely happy to help with that. All right. Okay.
There are a few more questions there.
Let's take a look. Again, there's questions on DUA, right? I know there's a lot of questions on DUA. I know this is kind of off topic for the device migration, but again, reach out to us. We're happy to answer those. What's the best avenue to submit questions? Again, reach out when you get that mail, and we're happy to jump on a call with you and talk through your scenario.
Okay, well, I want to give a big thank you to Joe and Becky for sharing their expertise. If you have any further questions, feel free to visit our support portal as well at support.quest.com. I also provided the link for the ebook. I will check the QR code, seems to be broken. But we hope you enjoy the ebook. That will also be sent via email for you to download and take a look at it. And we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Everybody.